Hi there, and welcome to the E-QIP webinar. We'll begin in about a minute or two. Just going to have a few more minutes for people to join the call.
Good morning, this is Ivan.
Morning, Ivan. I'm just going to give another minute for people to join, and then we'll begin.
Sure.
All right, hi there, everybody. It's the E-QIP team here. This is Michael, Director of QI at CMHA Ontario, and I'm here with my partner, Debbie Bang, who's Director at AMHO, as well as Ashley, who's our E-QIP Coordinator. And we're going to be joined in a little bit as well by Ivan Evers, and I know I'm going to mess up the name, Ivan, but it's Nipissing Supportive Housing Mental Health Services.
You're close. It's Nipissing Mental Health, Housing and Support Services.
I knew I was going to do that too, so thank you. And Ivan's going to share a little bit about his experience in the last cohort of E-QIP. So hopefully you can hear and see the screen okay as I switch through the slides. Let me just check. Okay, so we're going to do a brief background recap of E-QIP, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the different offerings that are available to this sector, followed by some information on how you can get involved in coaching if you're interested, and we'll actually do a bit of a walkthrough of the coaching package and how you can fill that in. And we'll hear a little bit about Ivan's experience being part of our last cohort. So that's us, Debbie and Mike. And our E-QIP team, in case you haven't had a chance to meet them yet, we have our very lovely and talented program manager, Jenna Hitchcox, who coordinates the ideas, training, as well as things like our collaborative community of practice space. We also have Ashley Koster, who's our program coordinator, who keeps us all moving in the right directions and helps make sure that all of the offerings and things that we do, like webinars, are coordinated and actually work, despite my best efforts. And we have our team of coaches, including Alex, who's one of our QI coaches, based out of Sudbury, as well as Laura, who's also based out of the Nipissing region. We have Linda Saunders, who's our QI coach in Halliburton, Kawartha area. Nicole, who's one of our QI coaches, who's actually seconded from Connects Ontario, so brings a bit of a provincial lens to this work, as well as Abel, who's a data coach with us, who's been here since almost the beginning of E-QIP, and brings a wealth of experience, as well as our newest data coach, Anna, who is seconded from CAMH. And so by way of a bit of a recap of E-QIP and why we're doing this work and why we're coming to you, is we really built out of a recognition that our sector wants to be and is working towards being quality improvement ready. And what that looks like is that that full adoption of quality improvement. So it's having a history of QI, making it part of how we do business on a regular basis, taking on quality improvement projects that involve clients and our frontline staff, as well as having dedicated leadership to support quality improvement efforts, access to meaningful data, and a bit of a quality improvement plan or roadmap as agencies in terms of where we want to head with our quality improvement work. So that's where we're ultimately, I think, trying to get to, but we recognize that agencies within community mental health and addictions are at different stages of QI readiness, all the way from early exploration, so first starting to even think about what quality improvement might mean or look like, through to installation, so trying, beginning the process of quality improvement, maybe taking on some projects, starting to get engaged, through to implementation, making it part of our regular operations, doing regular quality improvement projects and having a plan, finally to that full adoption phase. And when we did our sector survey about 2 years ago now, we found that folks were really at a mix. So we really almost had almost an even representation in all of those 4 profiles. A lot of folks beginning QI, and then I guess less folks at that full adoption, but really a mix of profiles. And folks identified the biggest barriers to being fully QI ready are things like having data systems that give us meaningful data that we can then use to guide our improvement efforts, and having that data available in real time in a user-friendly way. Also having policies and procedures and models to do quality improvement. That was also a bit of a challenge. And then finally, having dedicated staff time or resources to take on quality improvement. Those are some of the biggest barriers, but certainly not all of them. So out of this recognition of where we're at as a sector, came an understanding that if we're going to be able to achieve that quadruple aim of healthcare, which is really about providing the best quality of care and service to clients and families, so that folks are happier and healthier and coming back to us less often, and doing that in a way that's supportive of our staff and efficient in terms of use of resources, we need to make improvements on those domains of quality. so safety, timeliness, equitability, etc. That's really how we get there. If we want to provide the best quality care, we need to be improving those things that service users tell us speak to quality, like having timely access. And then to do that, we need a bit of a model and a roadmap to guide our efforts. And that's the model for improvement. It's asking 3 questions and then testing improvements using rapid PDSA cycle testing. And that's where E-QIP lives, is on that far left in that model for improvement. So helping to support agencies and teams to make improvements using that model to guide our curiosity and our improvement efforts towards those domains of quality. And E-QIP's been charged with doing that up until the end of our current funding cycle, which is March 31st, 2019, and doing that through a variety of offerings, as you're likely familiar, all centered around our collaborative community of practice. So having a place online, and it's housed within the Health Quality Ontario Quorum platform, a place for folks to come together, talk about quality improvement, share projects, resources, access tools, hear about other interesting projects that have happened, and really have a place to talk quality improvement and data. We also offer a number of educational offerings, such as our Introductions to Ideas training, which is really like the foundational QI 101 training, as well as leadership and governance training sessions, monthly webinar series, as well as access to other self-learning platforms like the IHI Open School, and offering a vehicle to get involved in the Ideas ALP. And then our biggest, I would say, offering comes in the form of QI and data coaching support, which we'll talk about today. This is sort of what it looks like in our current phase of E-QIP. We're doing some network coaching, so supporting some multi-agency groups to take on areas that are of priority interest to them and their community. We're currently supporting 4 networks, one looking at the OCAN use and experience, one looking at peer support and the experience of receiving peer support and how that can be improved. The third looking at improving crisis services within the Niagara region, and the 4th looking at transitions between hospital and community up in the Kenora Rainy River District. So those are pretty neat. We're also just winding down our 2nd cohort of our 3 cohorts of project and general quality improvement and data coaching, which we'll talk about in great detail today. We also, as I mentioned, offer a range of educational training opportunities, as well as links to other cool things that are happening in the sector and beyond. And all of those offerings are really geared at trying to help our sector get closer to that full IQ adoption profile that we mentioned at the outset. So all of our offerings are really tailored to folks at different stages of QI readiness, in hopes that we can help folks move along that journey towards that full adoption. And our QI and data coaching comes in 3 forms right now. The first being that network and group coaching that I referenced, those 4 networks that we're working with. The second being QI project coaching, and this is really neat. This actually follows teams along the full trajectory of a quality improvement project, all the way from identifying something that is meaningful to them and their clients, and that they see as being an opportunity for improvement, all the way through to diagnosing the root causes of that opportunity or problem that they're experiencing, through to developing and testing change ideas, and then hopefully spreading and sustaining any positive changes that happen. So that follows groups right through that full QI project, and that's probably, for the purposes of this webinar, where we'll focus. We also do offer general QI capacity building coaching. So agencies who may not yet be ready to take on a quality improvement project, but still would like to build that capacity and capability to maybe soon be able to take on a quality improvement project, can still apply to us for coaching support. And we can help through things like education and training, helping teams navigate their data systems, but really help build that infrastructure so that folks can do quality improvement projects in future. And for this cohort, like our last cohort, we have some identified priority areas for coaching. Not saying that these are the only areas that we'll be supporting projects to tackle, but these are some that we've identified, and Health Quality Ontario has helped us to identify as being really priorities for our sector. So we would encourage you, if you're thinking to take on a project and apply for coaching, is there something that's of meaning to you that maybe fits within these categories that we could coach you and support you on taking on as a quality improvement project? So the 4 categories are anything that aligns with HQO's quality standards related to mental health and addictions. So the depression, schizophrenia, opioid treatment standards. So what would that look like locally? Is there an opportunity perhaps? The second priority area is around timely access to service. So perhaps there's an opportunity within your agency or a particular program to try and improve access for folks to services that they may need. The third is looking at client experience, and there's lots of opportunities there. If you're using an experience tool, or maybe you'd like to, maybe there's some flags that have come back to you from that data, areas where you might want to improve or opportunities to improve, and we can help you to do that. And then the fourth is taking a look at client goal plans and improving client outcomes. And that's particularly related to tools like the OCAN that folks may be using and may have data from, and how can we use those for quality improvement opportunities so that we're improving that experience for clients. So I'll turn it over to Debbie, who's going to talk a little bit more in detail about the coaching and what you can expect.
Good morning, everyone. So the next slide speaks about the project-based coaching that we do with the agencies. So I thought I would just give you a bit more detail about what to expect. So if you apply for either general coaching or project coaching, we will be assigning a data and a quality coach to your agency that will work with you as we work through the model of improvement. And what you can expect from us is that there would be timely meetings that would be set up ideally every couple of weeks, where we would either be in person or by phone with your group, and you will pull together a team of somewhere between 4 and 8 people that would be part of your quality team. So we would be supporting you in defining what your problem is, identifying your root causes, working towards how you would measure the changes, coming up with change ideas, and then ultimately to sustain the change ideas that you identify through the PDSA cycle that are the most appropriate for implementing. We also invite our programs to come to some training sessions. So there's 2 full-day training sessions. The first one will be in early October, and it's on really the diagnostic tools, so helping to figure out what the real problem is. And then the second one would be, I think it's January, maybe, something like that. But you'll know all these details. We'll send it to you in a letter. And that's about the PDSA cycles of change ideas. So we spend a day going over those concepts with people, and then our coaches, both quality and the data coaches, would help support you in implementing what you've now learned. So that's the goal, of course, is to help you to build that structure within your agency to be able to do quality improvement on an ongoing basis. And then we would invite you also to be involved with our community of practice to talk about what it is you've learned, to share your fishbone, for instance, to share what your problem statement or your aim statement are, because your problem and aim statement is not probably unique only to your agency. There's probably another agency, a community mental health and addiction agency in Ontario, who would benefit from learning about what you've learned about or has a similar concern. And the community of practice helps us link people in a way that allows them to speak to one another. The organization and the general coaching is for that area that Mike spoke about. For those who aren't quite ready to do quality improvement, perhaps they don't have a regular point in time, whether it's with the board meeting and with the team, where they talk about the trends, they talk about the number of people that are coming through your service, what their experience is like. They have a regular way of reporting that and tracking it over time so they know if there's changes or things that come up. So helping you to figure out how best to do that. Sometimes it means that you put it on a particular agenda, that you have a way of bringing that data forward, that you have an identified person who can help pull that data together. And then we also help support by going to webinars, by having opportunities to speak with one another through the community of practice, and then would invite people to training as that's most appropriate. So again, the general coaching is for those who are perhaps don't have the infrastructure in place or the mechanisms all in place to support a quality improvement project, but are very interested in doing that, and we would like to be a part of that journey for you as well. This next slide, thank you, is the model of quality improvement. So if I can just sort of walk you through the stages. So the first part is figuring out what your problem is, and sometimes those are very loud messages that we hear through complaints or we find in our data. We notice that all of a sudden we've had way fewer people come through our door, or we're getting some concerns raised, or our team are telling us about some concerns. So that's what we begin with, is what is that problem, and figuring out how best to define it. And we also will invite you to look at a project charter, which will help you to sort of keep everything all on one page so you know what you're working on. We introduce you to the 5 W2Hs, which is a way of helping to sort through exactly what that problem is. In our field, as you know, we tend to help clients to reframe things in a more positive light and help them to see things in a more optimistic way. When we're looking at problems, we need to actually name what the real problem is, and that way we can begin to work on it. So once we've defined that problem, and we do that through a variety of different things, whether it's the fishbone and 5 whys, the Pareto, we ultimately get to an aim statement. And an aim statement is how we're going to know that we've made a difference. So it's a SMART goal, it's measurable, and it's specific, and it lets us know what it is we're going to be comparing pre our implemented changes and post those changes. Then we talk about our data. So how are we going to know that we've made a difference? What data sources do we have available to us? How are we going to track this information? Sometimes we use driver diagrams. We also use run charts, and they're a very interesting way of plotting information to help us see, something is happening here. We're starting to see a change in whatever it is we're measuring. Then we come up with some change ideas once we figure out exactly how we're going to measure and what our aim statement is. And we can be very creative at this point in time. Ideally, trying to think outside of the room. And then we look at how we're going to implement some of those changes. And we go through what we call the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle, where we implement a small thing for a short period of time with a few people. Did it make any difference? Nope. Try something different. It made a little bit of difference. If we tweaked it in this way, would we have a different outcome? So we make those changes, we test it for a few days until we get to a point where we're starting to say, this might be a good idea, and this might help us deal with what it is we're trying to work towards. So we test those out, and then once we figure out what we should be doing, what changes we need to be making, then we need to try to sustain those and spread those. And the spread is about talking with others about our accomplishments. Some might refer to that as a brag opportunity. But really trying to figure out a way to keep that momentum going. Sometimes it means some changes in a form, it might mean some changes in a process or a policy in how we do things. And the real key here is your discovery is probably useful for somebody else to know, and that's why we'd really like for you to have an opportunity to talk about that. So here's just some examples of some agencies that have been successful from Cohort 1. So this is the Canadian Mental Health Association in Middlesex, and they've actually won an award for this work. So their problem statement was, there's confusion around access to services, and data demonstrates an average of 186.4 days wait times for assessment to service initiation with case management services in London. There is inequity in service access depending on the point of first contact. So that's a pretty clear problem statement. What emerged from that, when they looked at root causes, their aim statement became to decrease avoidable wait times to case management services in London from service initiation. This includes referral to assessment and assessment to service initiation to under 14 days by December 1st, 2017. And they actually achieved that. So pretty exciting that that occurred for them. So this is a project from Cohort 2, and they're still working away at this. This is Thames Valley Addiction Services. So their problem was since 2006, approximately 60% of clients drop out of the substance abuse case management general program in London for reasons that are not known, resulting in clients not receiving the appropriate services or having their needs met. So their aim statement is to reduce the number of clients with a discharge reason for dropout or no-show by 10% in the adult substance abuse program in London by December 31st of this year. And that's still in process. So they're still working away at that. And we'll be hearing from them in September about how it is that's gone. So in your package, or on these slides, and all of you will have received this slide, is the downloadable quality improvement application. And also you can visit us at either of these sites to learn more about projects that we've supported in the past, which might help you to figure out what it is you would like to work on. And then the coaching application, which is due on July 15th, so that's next week, I think. What are we today? We're the 6th, so 9 days from now, week and a bit. So if you could fill this out, and Mike and I are happy to help you with any of the process of filling this out. So if we go to the second page, one of the things we'd like to know is if you're willing to share any of your progress. We're hoping that clients or that agencies will share the good, the bad, and the ugly of working with E-QIP and things that they've learned in a webinar at the end of that'll be the end of March of next year. So how best to do that for you, and then what it is you're looking for. For in most cases, we would assign both a quality improvement coach and a data coach to all of the projects. It would be unusual for us not to do that. The next page is what's your problem? What's the gap? What's the opportunity that you'd like to address? And have you any ideas of what might lead to this change? We don't expect you to know all the answers at this point in time. On the next page, which aspects of quality you're working on, and Mike went over those at the beginning. And then if you could sort of rate yourself where you think, are we in exploration, are we in installation, implementation, or full adoption as an agency? So not all of your team may be at that stage, but where is it, if you take the average of your agency, the team that are going to be working on your quality improvement, where do you think they would sit? And then we would like that signed by your CEO or your executive sponsor. And then we're going to ask you to go through a quality improvement assessment. And this really is to help you to think about how it is you're implementing quality improvement in your agency. So there's a series of questions with a scoring of 1 to 5. And it goes through organizational factors, as well as team project factors, and then your change ideas. You may not be able to answer change ideas at this point in time because you haven't necessarily tried anything, and that's okay. Do your best in scoring. So now I'd like to, before we do any questions, I'd like to introduce Ivan. So Ivan is with our Cohort 2, and they have been working on a project up in North Bay. So Ivan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So if you wouldn't mind to talk about sort of your experience with E-QIP and the challenges, the things that have gone well, maybe describing your problem statement and your aim statement and where your project is now.
Sure. Am I the only panelist joining today?
You are the superstar that came to do
Oh,
this.
I do feel special, man. Thank you.
Oh, special.
So I'll just begin at the beginning there with our problem statement. We became involved in Cohort 2 there. I guess it's been probably 6 or 7 months now. Our project focuses on the fact that we have no way of knowing that we're providing recovery-based goal planning for our clients. So we've been in the business for 20 years, and we do employ a psychosocial rehab model of care, but we don't have an effective way to measure any progress. So we don't disbelieve that staff aren't doing a great job. We just like to be able to prove that to our funders and anybody else. Our big .aim statement says, in order to ensure that personal goal planning is a key component of our client's recovery plan, by November of next year, 80% of our clients who've completed an OCAN will have identified a SMART goal, which is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time limited, which we don't have that component in there now for, timely review apart from the 6-month snapshot of the OCAN. So we want to be more specific in terms of our goal planning, and that was, I think, the fourth feature in the big 4 items there that the LIN or the ministry was advocating for. So how would we know that a change is an improvement? Review of our number of ICM OCANs that have at least one documented SMART goal. My hope is that we'll actually have more than that as we start to sustain this and spread it within our own staff team over the number of ICM OCANs completed. So currently we have almost 90% of our clients do an OCAN, and we would like to have 80% of those OCANs reflect a SMART goal and something that they're actively working on. Currently, we don't know how to gather the information and find the value of OCAN reports. It's certainly a process we've been working excitedly on the past couple months, and things are looking forward for us. So we've been able to see, for example, what the 4 top factors are within our agency. So things like daytime activities, company, physical health, and I forget the other one psychiatric symptoms, or psychological distress rather, were the big 4 here. So when I was at the think tank there in Toronto last week, I took some comfort in knowing that is also reflected in the provincial data, that it's not just a local thing. So we can actually use those reports now to better direct our service planning for clients. So that's been very useful. So we're also going to use something called GAS reports. We use software called CRMS. And so from Cohort 1, I was actually happy to see that there were other agencies that also use CRMS and that also had similar initiatives to ours toward developing recovery planning based on the OCAN unmet needs. And so we're going to use the goal attainment scale, which we had in CRMS, but wasn't really used effectively, but it does reflect the use of SMART goal planning. And so that's our big piece there. We also have a summary of actions report that we can print off, which is, the summation of the unmet needs that clients identify at the bottom of their OCAN. That gets spit out, and then they prioritize which order they would like to work on the various unmet needs in. And so that reflects the client-centeredness, that it has to be their own initiative. And that gives staff something to work with the clients toward fleshing out and coming up with SMART goal planning. I will speak a little bit about our challenges and pain points. I'd be remiss if I didn't. So we actually started out, I felt, a little ad hoc and a bit behind the 8 ball. Unfortunately, the day that we were supposed to do the executive sponsor training in Toronto, there was cancellation due to a massive snowstorm here in North Bay. So we actually didn't get to go to that piece. We did have phone conversation as a bit of a summary of that, which was helpful. And so we just felt a little bit behind the 8 ball when we did our first orientation training, which was held in Collingwood. And the coaching team was discussing root cause analysis, and we felt a bit unprepared for the seminar, like we were always a little bit behind. And then at the next meeting in Toronto, one of our staff became really ill, and we actually had to leave at 2:00. So we missed another piece on run charts, which is an important part of the training. However, we had a lot of assistance and follow-up from our coaches, Laura and Anna, they gave us constant reassurance and helped catch us up and told us that we were right where we needed to be in the process. And I wasn't always convinced that this was true, but as it turned out, they were right. So we were able to adapt and move forward with their coaching. And we met them every 2 weeks, and we continue to do that every other Thursday for 2 hours as we move through the process. So they're always available by email as well if we have a question in the interim. So that's been very useful to us. A personal pain point for me was, and I'm sure other people have probably heard or said this too, was attempting to move through the process too quickly to come up with solutions based on my own personal experience. And with their coaching help, I really learned to slow down and to trust the tools and the process that we were trained to use to ensure that we were addressing the real root causes of issues as opposed to just what seemed like obvious symptoms. And we found that this process was more reflective of the QI team as a whole as well, with our frontline staff and having that input to make sure that it really reflected the whole agency. As we got more deeply into the root causes and we explored our current process, we did find ourselves sort of tweaking our aim statement a few times actually to make it more realistic as we discovered that, things don't often move as quick as we'd like them to, and oftentimes there would be, issues with our software or developing reports or things that we would need to accomplish this. So we've been doing some PDSA cycles. We also looked at the data from Cohort 1. So Rue from the Oak Center and the folks up in Timmins were doing something very similar to us with OCAN recovery planning. And so we took great comfort in hearing from the coaching team that we should steal shamelessly. And so we didn't feel so guilty about having to do that rather than kind of reinventing the wheel for us. And then when we went to the think tank there in Toronto last week, we actually found that we weren't so far behind, but we were actually sort of on the cutting edge of where all this is going. So we're feeling really comfortable now. As Michael mentioned, our training, it's going to allow us to create that sustainability and spread for other projects once we're done with the formal coaching support, which I think finishes up in October for us, if I'm not mistaken. And as we learn and practice the tools and as we mature our QI team. So our QI team is only as old as this E-QIP project, really. Heretofore, it's only been me as the quality and operations manager. And through this process, we've kind of learned to identify that, it takes ownership and leadership and participation of everybody in the process to have that buy-in. So we have had consultants come into our agency before and do this kind of work with us on wait lists and stuff. And, we've done business process mapping and all that fun stuff. But they've done it and left. And so with this project, I think the difference for us is that by learning the tools and the process and mechanisms and having the support to work our way through them, that's going to be the sustainability piece for us, is that we can go forward and identify other things. And we already have as we've moved through some of our PDSAs to say, this ripple effect kind of means that there will be other projects coming down the pike that we'll work our way through as a team afterwards. One of our PDSAs currently is involving having two of our staff completing the goal attainment scale with our clients. So within our software systems, when they do the OCAN, they can now identify those goals. And once we're sure this is sustainable, we'll be doing training with the rest of the team. So as I say, we've had a few roadblocks in terms of working with CRMS to be able to pull a report that will show our active outstanding goals and how do we measure when they're achieved and when they're reviewed and that kind of thing. So it's really adding all of this infrastructure to our process, and it's not markedly changing anything that we've ever done. Now it's just giving it that structure so that we can actually show our clients where we've had success with them. Because oftentimes their goals seem very lofty, And yet when we break it down into smaller, more manageable pieces and they accomplish those things, or maybe they do amend the goal if it's too lofty, and they might walk 2 days a week to the mailbox instead of the original 3 that was proposed. But through that process of working with them, we've seen that we can actually, show them success as well. Just checking here. The other PDSA that we're currently working on that kind of came as a spin-off from this one is exploring the development of a cancellation report within our software, so that sometimes whether or not clients aren't engaging from the outset, those are more obvious sometimes, but then there's times where clients cancel, or staff may have to cancel an appointment, or clients just don't show up. And so one of the pieces we're looking to do is to find a way to measure that within our system as well, so that we can look forward to, creating the same format and following through the same process that we're learning through this project. I think that's pretty much all I have. As I say, the training has been very useful to us, and the participation in some of the other events and the tie-in with OCAN. The community of practice has been very useful to us for feedback or posting some of our stuff, and also the OCAN community of practice, where there's a lot of good chatter and sharing information so that we can move things forward. I think that's all I have, unless somebody has any questions.
Thank you so much, Ivan. So that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. So thank you for that.
Bit.
Yeah, very much appreciate your insight and telling what you've experienced. So we would actually like to open it up for questions at this point in time. Are we going to open lines, or are we going to type them in?
The question box is open on the webinar, so if you have a question, just type it in there, and it'll come right to us, and we can ask it on the phone. Just one question, Ivan, while we give folks a chance to do that. For those who may be thinking about applying for coaching but maybe not sure if it's right or if it's worth it, is there 1 or 2 pieces of advice you'd give to folks who are maybe just in that contemplative phase right now?
Again, I guess it depends where they're at within their own agency. As I said at the outset, we were we're in our infancy in terms of quality improvement development as a team. And so we had a very specific cause to take forth. I would suggest that if you're in doubt, try it. I mean, it's for us, it's an investment of our resources, but really it's going to pay back, in kind, and more so as we kind of generalize the training to other projects as we move forward. So it's been a boon to us, and it's been very useful in terms of understanding the practice around this project, but it is going to be part of a bigger picture for us.
Thanks, Ivan. We've got one question from Frank. Are there any specific criteria that are applied to selecting potential E-QIP projects? Great question, Frank. So for us, we're trying to encourage projects that do align with those 4 priorities that we mentioned. The timely access, the client experience, the client goal plan, or that OCAN piece, or the HQO standard. So really, as we're thinking to fill up the next 20 projects for this cohort, we'll be trying to get as many that fit in those buckets as well. The other criteria that we're using is giving agencies who haven't previously received coaching an opportunity. It's been great for us. We actually see agencies that we've coached applying a 2nd or 3rd time, which I guess is a good sign that they maybe enjoyed it or got something out of it, but we want to encourage new folks to also take part. And then our 3rd criteria really is looking at geographical location and trying to make sure that we reach folks in every corner of the province and don't just bundle around one area. So that's really our 3 main things that we're looking at this point. Do folks have any other questions, either for Ivan around his experience or for us around the application or what you can expect by coaching or anything E-QIP at all?
I think it's also, if we can also say that both Mike and I are very available to assist with, sort of forming that idea or what you think might be the problem or where you might focus, and again, can give some more details about how that might play out for your agency if you want to give us a call.
And if I could offer 3 little pieces of advice, I guess, from that I've learned over the last 2 cohorts of doing this. The first is, when you're thinking, if you're thinking to apply, try and find something that's meaningful for yourself and for clients, something that people can really get behind. Those projects tend to do well if it's something that really speaks to something that's important to your staff and to your clients. The second would be, and I think Ivan alluded to it, start simple. That's okay. You don't have to have all the solutions. I know we always want to jump to having the answers, but for the purposes of an E-QIP project, it's okay to start with the unknown, looking at a problem or opportunity, and we'll help you work through it together. And then the third thing I would suggest is, when you're selecting, or if you're selecting a project, not only thinking about something that's important, but something that's also going to help folks within your agency build the skills so that they can use the skills that they learn, the tools that they learn to take on other projects. And often that's having a project team that's made up of both frontline folks, clients when possible, but really getting a well-rounded group that's going to help take that learning and apply it to other projects in future. So just a few pieces of advice.
I think it's also important to think about being small, so not trying to, as Mike calls it, boil the ocean. And sometimes it's been our experience that sometimes the problem that you think is a problem will evolve a little bit as you work your way through the model of improvement, and that's okay. You don't need to get it perfect the first time. It doesn't have to be exact right wording at the start, and we're going to help you with that, and the model for improvement is going to help you with that. So try to stay focused on the problem as opposed to how you're going to solve it, because we're all very good at solving problems.
Yeah, and we actually saw that too, is that our problem and our aim statement kind of adapted itself and moved forward as we explored more fully what the root causes were. Then we were able to reflect that in our aim statement as well. It's a very dynamic process. The other piece I would just like to say is that we also participated in the ideas training for the rest of our staff that were not part of the E-QIP project, like our QI team. We actually had 22 individuals who did the ideas training. It's an overview of the whole process, and I think by and large they found that very useful, so that when we do introduce more of these concepts to them as we move forward with our other programs and practices and our QI stuff, they'll have that. They may not remember every detail from the day, but they'll have that basic understanding and knowledge to understand the philosophy of what we're doing and why we're doing it for our clients.
Thanks, Ivan. We had one other question as well from Zara around word limit. So no, there is no word limit for the application. You can give us as little or as much detail as you'd like. And if we have questions, we'll be definitely giving you a call. And as Debbie said, if you have any questions for us as you go through it, or if you're not sure what all to include, feel free to reach out to either or both of us. Seeing no further questions, again, please feel free to reach out to Debbie or myself if you have any questions, or email us or the general E-QIP email address, and we'll get back to you right away. We'll make sure that a copy of the slides that we used today are sent to everybody who was here on the webinar. We also recorded this webinar and we'll have it posted so that if you think of something later you want to go back to, you can do that on your own.
Any last minute thoughts? Any last minute questions? There's our contact information. And I'm now at AMHO instead of that great big long email address. So debbie.bang@amho.ca.
And a huge thank you to Ivan for sharing your experience. We didn't plant those answers, so thank you for.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
You were so in line with what we were hoping you were going to say.
Yeah, well, like I said, there's a few pain points as well, but the shiny side of that is we came out the other end and we're very happy where we're at now. So it does recognize, everybody has their own. For us, we were a bit of victims of circumstance due to weather and other things, but even with those things in place, we managed to get through the process, and it's still a dynamic process that we're working on.
Great. Thank you so much, Ivan.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any last questions? No? Well, then everyone enjoy the day and start to the summer, and we look forward to any calls and or some applications coming in. We're keen to get started in September with our third cohort.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Well, have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.